Greetings. Welcome to another installation of a Grumpy Gardener Show. I apologize ahead of time for the background noise. The neighbor is up to something with machines. I can't help it. So it's getting in the mic. But today I want to take a kind of an unusual route into health, because usually I'm talking about, herbs or herbal supplements, plants related to health, obviously the garden, right? But, most of these things I discuss are things that address physical issues. Today I want to talk about psychological health, and we won't need an herb for this discussion today, so I'm not going to cover one. Now, I want to talk about shared experiences. It doesn't matter, from my point of view, really, whether these are shared experiences with long-time old friends and family, or whether it's, new people we meet and then we begin to share experiences with them. I was inspired to think about this because of an experience I had yesterday. I have a very good longtime friend, known Mac since he was probably 15. We've been together through high school and on. Mac, of course, a bass player, another musician that I knew. That I never had a band with Mac, but I did play with him plenty in jam sessions and stuff over the years. But we've known each other for the longest time. It's just, and I've never felt that I couldn't trust Mac. That's important when it comes to shared experiences. Yeah, we're talking a lot of time over the dam here. It's almost 60 years I've known this man, that he's never given me a reason to think I shouldn't trust him. Well, initially here, what happened was Mac is living in Tampa. I think you all know what that means. Yeah, he used to live in Illinois. That's where we met, and he was there for the longest time. But after a while, he ended up, due to a bankruptcy in his nightclub and other things that came down, lost his house on the lake and whatnot. Mac ended up in this condominium, or it's a duplex, I think. Yeah, I believe it's a duplex, because I know he does a bed and breakfast in part of it. He rents part. So anyway, he's in this place in Tampa, and when I saw the storm moving in and heading towards them at that point, first thing I did was I got on the phone and I called Mac, and I said, Mac, I made contact. And as usual, he was actually packing his grandchildren, wife, daughter, his bass guitars and whatnot into a vehicle and heading for the evacuation route when the phone rang. And he had no time to talk, and I don't hold that against him at all. I said, well, you get out of town, all right? We'll get back later. And he did. Yesterday, around dinner time, Mac called, and we had a long, long conversation. Now, in history, when it comes to Mac has always been the guy that sort of held everything together. Mac was a hub, because Mac never really left the general area, where we grew up. Mac stayed there in northern Illinois. He moved around a little bit, but eventually he opened a nightclub and bar in the town that we grew up in. I used to run music acts, and he'd get up and play and stuff, and all that. And because of that, Mac was a hub for information about, what was going on in the old town, what was going on with people who actually stayed there, But most of us, we left, it wasn't the best place in the world to live, frankly. And so he also kept most of this satellite group together that at least once a year, every year, Mac would just about talk to everybody that we used to know who was still around. And then once a year, every year, he'd get back to me too. And so we'd share information about what was happening in our lives. We'd share information about what was going on with people we knew, Sadly, as time went on, we would share information about who was gone from the world because they began to die off, Had a lot of musician friends. A lot of times musicians don't live very long because of the lifestyle. That's why at 71 I have now outlived the vast majority of my friends because I left music and went into farming, see. Anyway, so we got into this conversation yesterday, and it was extraordinary for me because trusting Mac through his eyes, what he referred to as the Armageddon in Florida, I got to see, sort of what he was experiencing. He's telling me all, everything that was going on down there and so on. And well, of course, Mac has the luck of the Mac, okay, because apparently he has not been back to Tampa, but neighbors that are still there tell him that his house is standing intact and doesn't appear to be damaged. Wow. And apparently his daughter's house at Fort Myers, which really got busted, that's where Sanibel, Island got the causeway trashed and stuff. Apparently his daughter's house is still standing too. So they're very lucky people in this situation. And of course, he's going to come out pretty good because he can continue the bed and breakfast business he's been running out of the duplex once they bring all the workers in to be able to put up the power lines, rebuild people coming in from everywhere will be looking for places to stay. Mac still has one. Lucky man. So we started off that way. We started talking about, what happened, what's going on, how are you doing and all that. Then, of course, it switches and Max says, well, what's going on with you? And so I started to tell him the stories, about what's happening here. And then eventually, all of that, sort of boils down when you get two old men together who've known each other forever. Of course, we're going to inquire about our health, and we did. We're talking about what's wrong with us these days. I think that's kind of normal. But then we go into what we remember about the past, our experiences, the things that we've been through together, and that really got started because I was telling Mac about how I caught COVID from my son, and he's had it twice, by the way, and he's had all the shots. But, how I got it was a really delicious and fresh glass of Negro Modelo beer from Mexico. And I had, it was so good, I handed it to my son. Of course, none of us knew at the time he was infected with no symptoms. Yeah, so I caught it from him. Well, as I said, Negro Modelo, Mac had his hand on a bottle of beer with an opener, and it was, guess what? Right, Negro Modelo. And, for me, my relationship with Mac, this is not an unusual experience. Frequently, we would be to the point of pure telepathy. We knew each other so well that we would just, we didn't have to talk a lot of times, and somehow we ended up with the same thoughts, sometimes even the same mental images associated with those thoughts. So I started to flash back over some of these things with Mac, I said, do you remember the time? And I started to describe an experience we had that was really paranormal. And Mac goes, oh yeah, I do remember that one. Yeah. Whoa, you're right, geez, Well, then I continued. And I said, well, do you remember the time? And Mac goes, oh, no, I don't recall that one. And so I went into my eidetic image of the scene, and I began to describe in detail exactly where we were, what it looked like, and so on. And all of a sudden, Mac goes, oh, my God, I do remember that. Yeah, it came up. You could almost feel it rising. Well, I have this experience with old friends. It does happen that, people forget things. Like I say, Mac has been well known as a hub that connected people. My job in this really has pretty much been that I've always been told that I have an exceptional memory, and particularly eidetic images. I remember pictures. And so I'm usually the guy that can help the other people that I know fill in pieces that might have been lost in their memories. It's kind of neat when that happens, and we'll talk story over it. Again, I have about 4 people, aside from my brother Bob, okay, who's a relative, but 4 friends left on Earth that I can do this with. That they've been around since I was a boy. We've had collective experiences like you would not believe over the years. Some of them normal, some of them extraordinary. Who knows? And so I still have 4 left. In fact, one of them should be on the island today. My buddy Jimmy, who was we met in grade school, and he was the drummer for my first rock and roll band. Jimmy and I worked in underground radio stations in Illinois together, and well, I know the one collective experience that we have is as we worked in the radio business there, part of our job was to outlook records. They'd send in the big boxes of stuff, and we'd go through them, we'd play them, sit there and play them, and when we found one that we liked, we'd take it up, give it to the DJ, he'd put it on the turntable. So Jim and I are both incredibly proud of the fact that the first time the song Gloria, 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 was played in the city of Chicago, we put it on the turntable. We said, this is a song. It's classic. We were pretty good at this, all right. First time the song by the Chambers Brothers, Time Has Come Today. Me and Jim. First time. Yeah, so, you go through these things in life that are special events. And, in Hawaii, this sort of thing, I guess, could be called, it's a hui in Hawaiian language, H-U-I. Now, it's a very generic term here. That means anything from any gathering of individuals, from a corporation to a business to a club, to you name it. Anytime that periodically groups of individuals come together and maybe just sit in the park and talk story. But if you do that once a week, that's a hui. And here is what we have, this blue zones thing, which is supporting health in the islands and stuff. And the hui is one of the things that's indicated as being very valuable, especially as older people, maybe everybody they know has passed away, maybe they're distant from their relatives. Well, getting together once a week to play bridge with a bunch of people or whatever, so that you have shared experiences. I have, for a while I had one old friend, Jim, on the island till his house was destroyed in the Leilani lava flow down there. He's still comes and goes, stays for a while. But I have no old friends here in Hawaii, but yet I have quite a few friends, and of course, as my YouTube viewers, this is actually where many of my local friends have come from. Yes, people who watched the channel eventually ended up over here. Well, then we see each other, maybe once a week. A couple of guys down the block here, Gary and Kahoa, they came out of Michigan, but after talking with me on the channel, moved here, and we see each other all the time. It's important to us. There's support in it. They raise my eggs, if nothing else. And of course, I exchange plants or whatever. We do a barter thing. But he is having this kind of relationship with shared experiences with other individuals. And again, whether the experiences were just mundane, sitting around drinking coffee and big boy, watching something stupid, right? Or maybe they're extraordinary. sometimes we have these things happen to us in life that, well, as time flows over the dams of life, maybe we begin to question ourselves on some of this. I do. I've had experiences that were not common. And there were often other people I'm associated with who are still alive, some of them, who had the shared experience. My good and deep friend Rick out in North Carolina, we played in bands together. We traveled all over, turned around at the Guatemalan border because there was a revolution to head back to Mexico, together. Stuff like that. Just crazy, weird things that people do over time. And, So, Rick's still there. Rick and I still talk. Every time we talk, or every time I talk with Jim, or every time I talk with Mac, the years melt away. Yeah. The years just melt away. We'll be 16, 18 years old again sometimes. I know every time Jim comes by here to the island, we start hanging out, playing music, and stuff. Jim always says, man, it's like there's never been any time between us. It's like we're still 16. Still share all that. Well, like I say, though, we do have certain experiences in life where they are extraordinary, and it's very difficult sometimes to really believe after 50 years or more that this actually happened. So, like I say, in Rick's case, well, Rick and I shared a extremely haunted house in Illinois together. We both had the experiences, and, well, there's practically nobody else alive yet that I still talk to, at least, that had shared that with me except for Rick. And he helps me validate the fact that, yeah, it was creepy and weird, eh? Otherwise, I might think, maybe it's just old man's ramblings. It didn't really happen. On the other hand, Rick and I also had probably one of the most extraordinary encounters with what we call UFO. In my case, I am positive this was an alien craft. There's no way. It was too close. We were right next to it. The only thing is that over the years, as I got back to Rick on the experience, because, man, it knocked my head for a loop. I never forgot it. It's burned into my memory. I was there side by side with Rick. Rick can't remember anything of it. Not a bit. Now, this is an interesting phenomenon sometimes happens with UFO. I don't know if it's because some people just simply cannot accept what's happened and they repress, and so it goes away. It's hard to deal with. Or, maybe it's alien mind blocking. I don't know what it is, all right? But, there's an experience there where one of the most extraordinary sightings I've ever had. I shared it with Rick, and Rick has nothing there. It's not in his head. But like yesterday with Mac, some of the things that had slid the back of the mind that Mac had almost forgotten, because I was there and I mentioned it, they came back to the foreground, and it kind of enriches our experience as we do that. Of course, I feel good about being able to help somebody restore some of the lost memories of life, back to shared experiences that are completely weird. I mean, I had an experience shared with an entire band, and it's a 5-piece band, and we played a gig. It was a wintertime gig, Northern Illinois. Wasn't very good. It was a bad gig. Happens sometimes. But anyway, we were on the way home, all in the van, all the stuff packed. As we're driving along, we ended up with an alien craft, a flying saucer, typical flying saucer thing, paralleling the highway over the top of a frozen cornfield, following us side by side. All the people in this experience remember the encounter. Not one person remembers what happened next. That's weird. This is a weird one because the band broke up after that with no discussions, no arguments, no nothing. We never talked about it. We never practiced again. We never did another gig. Everybody remembers waking up in bed the next morning, but nobody remembers how they got there. And actually, nobody remembers anything after seeing this craft. That was it. Blink, till the next morning. So we got lost time. It's classic. We got totally lost white memories. It's classic. 5 people all having that exact same experience. There's where shared experiences are somewhat valid, and that today there is only one other person who had this experience still left alive. I don't discuss it with them much. I've often thought about, maybe we should get some hypnosis or something, some regression, see if we can figure out what the dickens happened. But at this point, it's not important, I guess. But here's another extremely odd shared experience. And if I hadn't had my folks there, a music group is pretty much a hooey, all right? To be able to bounce this around. And we rotated this for a number of years. It came up as we'd get together, and it's always a blank. Yeah, well, boring talking about my experiences, but the truth is, I'm 71 years old. When I get together with people that I've known since I was a teen, time melts. I'm a teen again for a little while. When I got off the phone with Mac yesterday, God, I felt so good. Yeah, really. I felt younger. These things are really good for your health. I know quite a few people in life that it seems that for some reason, whether they're too busy or whatever the reasons are, that they lose track. Oftentimes, people spread out. In my case, Mac and, one lady, Jackie, are probably the only 2 people that I was ever really pretty tight to that kind of stayed just about, my brother, stayed where they were born, more or less, Northern Illinois. But everybody else went, they're gone. They disappeared into, North Carolina, Florida, California, Alaska, Hawaii. They went all over the place. Arizona, a lot of them in Arizona. Once people do that, hey, it's not like you can drive by their house anymore, knock on the door and go, hey, what's up? You have to make an effort to stay in touch with them. A good friendship is good friendship, no matter how far apart people are. Of course, with modern technological communication devices, whether it's Zoom or your smartphone or your computer, you can stay in touch. It's easier to stay in touch today. A lot of people don't do it for whatever the reasons are. I've never quite figured that one out, because to me, I value friendships like gold. I don't make a lot of them. I'm not a guy that's easy to make friends with. I'm very particular about the sorts of individuals that I hang with. And so I make friends slowly, and I make friends even slower at this age. It was easier. I think most of us find that the friends we make earlier in life, it's easier to make more friends. You usually had larger groups of friends, that were together, too. And I know I did. Yeah, we had a whole circle, most all of it revolving around a couple of different rock and roll bands and other people who were associated with those bands and so on. So it was a great big hooey, mostly musicians and people who like musicians. And, we used to get together all the time. But as time goes on and people move on, it's common. They just don't get in touch anymore. And, it's sad. It's sad for me when I have people that just won't communicate anymore, because they may have been important to me. But maybe it's even more sad for the people that don't make the communications, because So I say, when I stepped back from that phone call with Mac yesterday, oh, man, I felt so good. And like I said, to feel what it was like to be 16 again is kind of what it's like it was for both of us. Both of us went into that mode. And that happens with other friends of mine, too, that have been around that long. We get going on stuff, and next thing you know, you're almost kids again. That's precious. I don't use that word too often. Yeah, not too often does that come out of my mouth, but it is. And, of course, a lot of these guys that I'm associated with, they were in music with me. We did music together. Of course, music is an intellectual and creative activity, and it engages the mind and the body, both. And it's emotion in it and so on. So when you make music with a group of friends, and it's good music, you have an experience that transcends. I won't even bother trying to compare it to one thing or another in life, but all I can say is that when minds merge and make something beautiful, you never come back away from it feeling quite the same about the people around you. They become kinship. It's deep. You got an emotional attachment in there. Music can be euphoric even, and so because of the depth of emotion that I've experienced with some of my male friends, which is maybe a little bit unusual for males. Yeah, it may be a bit odd, but I mean, these are some people I can actually say, I love these guys, Yeah. Yeah, and so there, again, here we have this feeling that I know people that I really love them, and I know they feel the same way about me. This is support. Yeah. You can get lonely as you get old. I see it happening myself. Like I said, it's 4 people and 1 brother are the only people that I can share experiences like this with anymore, because they're the only ones still alive that live that long side by side. I have new friends, and they're cool. They're cool, but our shared experiences are only this long. Some of these folks, our shared experiences go out of the field of the camera. They're huge. And they're all kinds of weird, fun things and stuff. It's been an interesting life. What are the Grateful? Oh, the Grateful Dead said, it's been a long, strange trip. Tell you, it is. It has. Boy, oh boy. And some of these guys been around through that whole long, strange trip. Anyway, that's all I got to say on it, and that is, if you have old friends that you really still care about, but you haven't talked to them in a while, go pick up the phone. You'll really appreciate it. They will too. And if you have old friends that you have talked to recently, keep it up. You know what I'm talking about. It's family's cool too. Family's cool, but there's a little difference in family. Yeah, because you're related. You had no choice. With friends, you picked them. It's a little different. You can be lucky that you can have family you're related to and you had no choice, but you picked them anyway because they were such great people. That doesn't always happen. And if you have no people left around you, loneliness is a killer. And so, walking out in the street and going, will you be my friend? It doesn't work well. And, what they call friends on Facebook is, oh, God, no. I have people all the time saying, I want to be your friend. No, I'm sorry. Criteria is too high. I put a higher standard on friend than Facebook does. But at the very least, you can join a club, an organization, a group, or whatever. Ellen, she loves the society and the local pond club, water gardening club. Yeah, that's a pretty casual one, pretty laid back. It's not a lot of structure. They sit around, swap plants, talk about stuff, and eat food. it's good. She's met some people there that she really likes. Well, of course, she's president-elect of Gila Orchid Society now, and that's keeps her going, boy. She's met people there, and she's met people she likes. And so you can make these things happen. If you are devoid of friendship and people around you, I highly recommend you go on out and try to join some organization that may, if you're here on the island, hey, join the Orchid Society. Why not? If you like orchids. If you don't like orchids, don't join the Orchid Society. But there are groups of all sorts. I mean, you even get together and the people just play cards. My grandpa wasn't a big one on having a whole heck of a lot of friends either, but he had a few, and that was exactly how they dealt with each other. Pinochle over beer and cigars. Place stunk. I remember it, but they loved it, Anyway, y'all hang loose there, folks, and aloha, and see if you can find your hooey.